Jamahal Hill versus Khalil Rountree just wrapped up at UFC Baku, and I gotta be real with you guys, I didn't expect it to go down like this. I expected more chaos, maybe a war, maybe one guy getting clipped early, but what we got was a slow, calculated demolition, and Jamahal Hill got exposed in every single way. I mean, from the opening bell, I could already tell something was off. Hill came out patient, calm. He was just standing there at range, flicking a couple low kicks, trying to feel things out, but that's not really his game. That's never been his game. Hill is not some technical sniper. He's not slick. He's not a measured counter striker. He's a guy who, in my opinion, thrives in chaos. He's dangerous when he's trying to throw in combinations and trying to walk guys down, forcing brawls. To see him coming out trying to be like this, a composed technician, it didn't give me confidence. It gave me doubts right away. And meanwhile, Khalil Rountree, he was loading up from the very start. He didn't throw often in round one, but when he did, he was looking to destroy. He opened with calf kicks and not just tapping shots either. These were heavy bone cracking kicks. And you can see immediately that Hill didn't know what to do with them. He tried to act like they didn't hurt him, doing that usual smirk, shaking his head. But every time that leg got chopped, it told a different story. His base was shifting, his stance was getting weird, he couldn't plant the same, and by round two, it was a wrap. Hill's legs was getting cooked. He could barely move, and instead of going out in his shield or turning up the volume like he used to do when he smells danger, he just froze. He just stood there at range, half committing to feints, occasionally throwing arm punches, and getting punished every time he was opened up. Roundtree didn't even have to work that hard for the openings. He just circled, baited Hill into stepping forward, and lit him up with hooks, body, kicks, calf kicks, everything. And then came the knockdowns. Clean left hand, boom! Hill hit the mat. He just popped up. There was no fire in his eyes, just confusion. Then a right hook down again. Flash knockdown. But enough of them and you realize the dude was getting walked down and outclassed. This guy who's used to walking through the chaos and firing kill shots, gone. The guy who bullied Johnny Walker and slugged it down with Thiago Santos, nowhere in sight. And by the time round three came, it got even worse. Roundtree started pulling Hill into traps, jab, feints, angling out, stepping hooks, boom, over and over again. He had Hill wobbling, slipping, chasing, and Hill just kept doing the same thing, standing there at range, occasionally throwing a limp jab, smirking like he was still in control. It was delusional, like he was trying to convince himself more than anyone else. And by round four, it was hard to watch. Hill had no mobility, no shot selection, no direction. He was just there. Roundtree was still fighting with intent, still slamming leg kicks, still swinging to hurt. And Hill was still pretending like nothing was happening while getting systematically broken down. Then came round 5, and if you're a Hill fan, this was the worst part, because you think at this point, down on the cards, his legs were shot, his pride is on the line, that he would go out swinging, that he would show some desperation, that the dog would come out, but nothing. He coasted, no urgency, no adjustments, no final push, just more circling, more half-hearted shots, and more of the same blank stares. It was like he already accepted that L. He just didn't want to say it out loud, you know? So yeah, Roundtree wins a clear, dominant, unanimous decision. Could have been a 49-46, could have been a 50-45. Either way, it wasn't close. This wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a bad round. It was a complete exposure of what Jamahal Hill is and what he isn't. He isn't a technical fighter. He isn't tactical. He isn't slick. When the chaos isn't in his favor and when he can't land first, he just stands there and crumbles. The scariest part, he looks like a guy who didn't even want to be there anymore. Khalil Rountree just didn't beat Jamahal Hill. He pulled the curtains back and he showed the blueprint, and now it's out there. I don't know where Hill goes from here, because if you can't fight chaotically and if you can't fight technical, then what do you have? And while we're being real about Jamahal Hill, we gotta pivot real quick and give some love to the man who just walked him down and dismantled him. Because let's not act like this was Hill just falling apart. Nah, this was Roundtree showing up, locking in, and clocking in for violence. He didn't just win the fight, he owned it. And at this point, we gotta start asking the question, is Khalil Rountree ready for a title eliminator? Because let me say something. At first, but I can actually see Khalil fighting Yuri Prochazka, and I can actually see him beating Prochazka. Is that crazy? Yeah, I said it. Now, before you throw your phone, hear me out. I'm not saying it's guaranteed. I'm not saying he runs through Yuri. But stylistically, Roundtree is one of the few guys who actually gives Yuri real problems, in my opinion. He doesn't get sucked into the wild exchanges. He plants his feet, throws tight, explosive combos, and stays dangerous from bell to bell. And Yuri, he's chaos, he's unpredictable, but sometimes that unpredictability walks him straight into fire. And against a guy like Roundtree, man, who's built to throw short hooks and nasty body kicks and shoe legs up every time you square your stance, that's not a good habit. Plus, Khalil doesn't fade the way that he used to. That used to be the issue with him, right? Round 1, killer. Round 3, ghost. But this version, the one that we just saw tonight, that was a 5-round fighter. That was a dude who knew how to stay composed, break a man down piece by piece, and finish strong. If Yuri plays his usual high-risk game against that guy, man, he might get slept, for real. And look, if the UFC doesn't want to run Yuri versus Khalil, I wouldn't mind seeing Roundtree versus Magomedov and Goliath either. That's another matchup that tells us exactly where both guys are, and Goliath has the grappling and the composure and the striking, but can he deal with the violence? Can he stay safe for 15 to 25 minutes against a guy who wants to rip your soul out with every kick? Because right now, Khalil Rountree just beat a former champion, and not just beat him, he dismantled him. And when you do that, you don't go back to fighting guys who are ranked number 9 or 10. You get real names, whether it's Yuri Prohaska, Goliath, or even a backup spot on a title fight card. He earned it. But anyways, back to Hill, because this fight wasn't just about Roundtree looking like a killer. It was about Hill looking like a shell. Nothing but memories of a belt you once held, and a spotlight that's getting dimmer by the day. And now that the dust has settled, and Khalil Rountree just put up a clinic on Jamahal Hill, we gotta ask some real conversations. Not the he used to be champ angle, the truth. Because at this point, I think we're all wondering the same thing. Was Jamahal Hill ever really that good? Or was he just a guy who showed up at the right time when the division was in pieces? Let's not sugarcoat it, okay? Jamahal Hill has power. He's confident. He talks like a fighter, moves like he believes in himself, and he has some solid finishes. And now you stack that up next to what we just saw lately. Man, it's starting to look really shaky. Think about how he became the champion in the first place, okay? Yuri Prohaska, the actual champion at that time, gets hurt, a freak shoulder injury in training, one of the worst in UFC history, and to Yuri's credit, he vacated the title instead of holding up the division. He stepped aside and said he'd come back when he was ready. So what happens? The UFC tries to book Jan versus Magomedov and Goliath for the vacated belt, a legit top contender fight, but they fight to a draw. The belt stays vacated, Dana White's pissed off, the division's in chaos, and out of nowhere, here comes Jamahal Hill. He's not ranked in the top 3, no recent top 5 wins, but he got a couple knockouts, he's loud, he's got that it factor like that the UFC likes, so they book him against Glover Teixeira, a 43-year-old legend coming off an absolute war with Yuri Prohaska for the undisputed title, and just like that, Hill is headlining a pay-per-view for gold. Now, I'll give him credit. Hill showed up that night. He looked completely composed. He stuffed takedowns. He jabbed up Glover's face off and earned that win. It was his best performance by far. But let's be honest, that wasn't prime Glover Teixeira. That wasn't the same guy who steamrolled Jan. That was a 43-year-old warrior running on fumes. Probably already thinking about retirement. Let's be real. That version of Glover gave Yuri the perfect matchup. A guy who's too slow to keep up, too worn out to chain takedowns for 5 rounds. So Hill wins. He raises the belt. The world hears his name. But from that point on, it's been downhill fast, okay? After winning the belt, he tears his Achilles. He gets a freak injury. He sits out for years. And when he comes back, the first guy he faces is Alex Pereira, one of the most terrifying strikers in UFC history, and it wasn't even competitive. Pereira put him away in round 1, timed him, clocked him, walked away like it was just business. And yeah, you could chalk that up to one injury layoff, the pressure, the bad style matchup, but it doesn't stop there. The UFC gives him a second shot, this time against Yuri Prohaska. And this should have been the moment Hill proved that he was still in the mix, that he belonged there, you know, that the Glover win wasn't just a fluke. But instead, we saw a man who couldn't keep up with Yuri's pace, unorthodox movement, his pressure, it all drowned Hill. He just overwhelmed him. He didn't adjust, he did bite down and fight back, but he was fading and Yuri just broke him. And now here we are, Hill versus Roundtree. And it wasn't just a bad performance, it was just collapse. From round 2 on, Hill looked like a guy who didn't even want to be in there. Roundtree was chopping his legs apart, dropping him multiple times, walking him down, and Hill had nothing. Not just technical, I'm talking about emotionally, mentally. He stood there at range, getting eaten alive, and just kept shaking his head like it was all good, smirking like he wasn't falling apart in front of our eyes, you know? He didn't push, he didn't fight back. In round 5, down on the cards, beaten up, humiliated, he just coasted. Let Roundtree styled on him. No urgency, no heart, no fire. That's not a former champion trying to make a statement. That's a guy who lost the belief in himself. And that's when the truth really hits. Maybe Hill was never really that guy. Maybe he was just a guy who just got in when the belt was vacated. Maybe he was a product of a broken division. A couple knockouts, a couple short notice title shots, a win over aging Glover Teixeira, and now the real killers are back. Pereira, Geary, Ankalaev, even Roundtree. I'm just saying it how it is. Hill cannot hang. And the scariest part is the thing that we thought defined Jamahal Hill, the power, the grit, the swagger, the dog in him, they're all gone. The technique was never there, but at least he used to be dangerous. Now he looks like he's just stuck, like he doesn't know how to win anymore, like he's in a different sport entirely. And I don't see that with malice. I say that with real disappointment because the guy had moments. He was on top of the world, and now in just 3 fights, he completely spiraled from holding the belt to getting dropped multiple times and laughed at by the fans in the comment section. That's how fast the game moves. And that's just the thing, man. It's not just that Jamahal Hill lost again. It's how he lost. It's what we saw. The dude is now on a 3-fight losing streak, and each one has looked worse than the last. And after what just happened with Khalil Rountree, I'm telling you right now, he looked like a guy who doesn't even belong in the top 10 anymore. I mean, let's just keep it real. The holes have been there. He's never checked leg kicks. His footwork has always been stiff and clunky, like he's dragging around like a cinder block or something. He overextends on every big shot. He doesn't cut angles. And now the biggest thing of all, that dog that he used to have, the grit, the pressure, the willingness to go to war, it's gone. It used to be like that. If you stood in front of Hill and threw with him, you were playing with fire. He had that kind of power and confidence to win a brawl. But now, if you don't even give him the war, if you don't walk into his chaos, he has no answers. Just circle around him, use some basic movements, and snipe him outside, and you're gonna coast to win. And that's terrifying, bro, because now when I look at the top 10 of the division, I don't think he beats any of the guys, not a single one. Maybe just Johnny Walker. I'm just being, maybe just Johnny Walker, because let's be honest, who doesn't beat Johnny Walker? I mean, he already done it once, he could do it again. But this version that we saw with Roundtree, just standing there, legs already half dead, still circling towards the power side, throwing nothing meaningful, waiting, watching, getting chewed, no urgency, no dog, no bite. Just a guy getting beaten down and pretending it wasn't even happening. And once that dog mentality is gone, once that killer instinct is dead, what do you have left? What do you have left with Hill? Seriously, what's his game? He's not a sniper. He's not a technician. He doesn't grapple. He's not good off the back foot. He doesn't have the cardio to drown guys. He's not a threat in the clinch. So what is he now? A guy with one big right hand and a belt he used to have. That's it.